This is Anything But Footy. In the week that legendary BBC foreign correspondent John Simpson liked to tweet stating, "Please can we have our Olympics back? I like that, Britain, much more." And that is what we're all about, everything Olympic and Paralympic. And we have a Team GB Olympian on the podcast this week as well. We are delighted to say we'll be hearing from Winter Olympian Aimee Fuller very shortly. I'm Michael.
And I'm John, and we are on the road today because Michael's been at the London Landmarks Half Marathon in the centre of the capital city. But we've grabbed some time in a car park before he heads back north. This is how we roll on Anything But Footy. And you can get in touch anytime, as we say, at Anything But F on Twitter. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. And if you do like us, please share us on the social media, download it. You can rate us on iTunes as well. That would be really helpful.
And there is literally a ticking clock in the building where the British Olympic Association and the British Paralympic Association are based. And we are helping them tick down that clock to Tokyo 2020 and Beijing 2022. John and I were on our travels this week, having some very interesting meetings with the likes of UK Sport, the British Paralympic Association and the British Olympic Association. So I hate to start this week with doping, but that is where we are going to start Anything But Footy, because this week at least 21 athletes from 5 different sports, that's 3 winter sports, 2 summer sports, have been implicated, suspected of having blood doping links to a German doctor at the centre of an ongoing investigation. You probably saw on social media some of the pictures, some of the video footage of those raids recently by Austrian and German police. And this investigation has been prompted by an Austrian cross-country skier who was convicted of doping offences after the Winter Olympics in Sochi in 2014. Our own Adam Peaty has some strong opinions on this as well.
Yeah, the Olympic and world record holding swimmer has said, he tweeted this week, "Make them give and pay anything they've won back to the athletes who've lost out due to them cheating." Now, we're 6 editions and episodes into Anything But Footy, Michael. We haven't really done that much about drugs. It's something we get asked all the time. Is everyone on it? Are they all on drugs? The answer is obviously no, but unfortunately and ultimately, and like in all walks of life, some people will always try and bend and frankly break the rules. So this may be the shortest conversation we ever have on a topic, but what would you do with them?
Well, I have to say I agree with Adam Peaty, and the reason I think he has come to that conclusion is that he and his teammates have potentially been victims to this. Sun Yang is the swimmer that has been in the news this week. He is the one that Adam Peaty has been reacting to because a FINA doping panel have issued just a warning to him after he left the control room without permission. He may also have been involved, we don't know obviously the full story here, in the smashing of one of his blood containers. And as I said, FINA have basically let him off with a slap on the wrist. This is very much against the rules. If you go into that environment, the doping control rooms, you have to, of course, abide by the rules. That is how they then get the samples, which they then hold and test, and they can test again in the future. Now, Yang says he acted as he didn't believe the proper protocols were being used. He said the doctor was not qualified, and that is the reason he did what he did. That said, he seems to me to have taken the umbrage he's felt and gone way above anything that he should have. And that is what Adam Peaty has been so annoyed with this week. Interestingly, he signed up, of course, to that new international swim series. No swimmers who have served drugs bans are allowed in that. So it's one strike and you're out. And I am thinking, I'm getting to that viewpoint now that one strike and you're out might be the way forward.
Because, of course, Team GB, you know, the British Olympic Association used to have the rule, if you're found guilty, you are banned for life. And that was obviously overturned, somewhat controversially, and they had to abide by that. And, you know, you have 2-year bans, you have 3-year bans, sometimes you have 4. Is there a kind of, should it actually be that you have one chance? And, as you say, if you're then banned, you never compete again. Or do you get one strike, and then, oh, well, okay, if it happens again, you're then definitely out. It's because it's that whole restriction of trade kind of argument, isn't it? If you are, ultimately, if you're an athlete and you're a swimmer, you're being prevented from doing what you should be doing if you're banned for life.
But James Guy was denied a world title in 2015 and an Olympic medal in 2016 by Sun Yang. How different James Guy's life might be might still be had he been a world champion, had he won that Olympic medal in 2016. You look at the example of someone like Justin Gatlin, of course. He was very much the bad boy, wasn't he, of the London World Athletics Championships. Now, when you really delve into his story, there are inconsistencies as to why he's perhaps failed those 2 drugs tests. But you fail 2 drugs tests, then you've got to look at the 60,000 people in the stadium every morning and every evening and think, can I trust what I'm seeing? And that, for me, is the key word, trust. Do I trust what I'm seeing at the Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games, Paralympics?
And of course, they booed him famously in 2017, didn't they, when he had his name mentioned? And obviously, we were talking about the 21 athletes who have been kind of not named, and I suppose that's the slight issue. So the Munich state prosecutor said that there are 3-figure cases of blood being taken out and then being reintroduced worldwide, which is a horrible thought when you think about it. But he says in Germany, Austria, Italy, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Croatia, Slovenia, and Hawaii. Now, no details of the names of the athletes or their specific sports were made available, and that's what makes it really hard, because then everyone's at suspicion.
Yeah, it's this innocent until proven guilty thing, I guess, and that's not just unique to sport, that's unique to a lot of things. You can get tainted, can't you, as an athlete? And, you know, when the leaks came out, the Russian leaks came out, there was talks about the people that were taking the exemptions and things like that. They then get tainted with this idea that despite the fact that someone like Laura Waitman, for example, who's represented Great Britain at the Olympics, has suffered from asthma her whole life and takes asthma medication, when those exemption breaks come out, the exemption leaks come out, I should say, someone like Laura Waitman and others that take this medication because they have to, and it puts them on a level playing field, it then puts them under the finger of suspicion, and athletes like Laura Waitman shouldn't be under the finger of suspicion.
On the record, I'm going to say, just ban them.
Yeah.
If you're found guilty once, you had your chance. I mean, it's not as though you don't know what's going to happen to you.
And there's a process. You can't just fail a drugs test and they go, right, that's it, you're done. It's a process, a legal process then that takes place. There's appeals, subsequent appeals. You could take it to the Court of Arbitration of Sport if you so wanted. But I think if you get to that level and you've still failed the drugs test, I'm with you. Don't compete at a world elite Olympic level.
I just don't understand how anyone ever defends it, but that's just my humble opinion. But I'd always really love to be able to think the majority of athletes are clean. That's why we do this podcast.
I love to think that there's trust in everything we watch, and you know, whilst we talk about some controversy, if you like, in the world of sport, we'll move it on to cycling. And Team Sky have been supremely successful, but supremely controversial, of course. And we know that there is an issue going on at the moment. There is an adjournment of the tribunal of their doctor, Richard Freeman, who's at the centre of much of this controversy at the moment. But they now have their opportunity, I guess, from a PR point of view, to wipe the slate clean, because Team Sky will be no more, and at the Tour De Yorkshire, a new dawn. Team Ineos will be launched. It's Sir Jim Ratcliffe, his chemical company, will be the new sponsor of the team, who have won 8 Grand Tours. But Dave Brailsford will still run the show. You might know the name Ineos because they also sponsored Sir Ben Ainsley's America's Cup team. But is this a chance for Team Sky, Team Ineos as it now is, with the 6-day series taking place in Manchester at the Velodrome at the moment as well? Is this a chance for them to kind of reset and relaunch?
I think it is. But I think what's interesting is that this is probably, and look, you always get, when you have sponsors, you always get controversy, which we'll probably talk about in a moment. But I do wonder whether Ineos is probably the, you know, is the right one to try and have a new slate clean, if you know what I mean. And you know, it's owned by Britain's richest man, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and he's going to bring in, you know, probably equal, maybe even increase the £35 million budget that Sky had. And people are beginning to say, is Team Ineos the new Man City, the new Paris Saint-Germain or PSG?
We don't talk about football.
We're using it as an example. But I think, you know, does that put people off? It will put the purists off.
It will put the purists off.
But it doesn't put anybody else off.
But it won't put the people off that maybe will watch cycling 3 or 4 times a year. They'll watch Geraint Thomas, they'll watch Bradley Wiggins, they'll perhaps watch Chris Froome coming down the Champs-Élysées, and that will be it for their cycling. And they'll see these Britons, you know, in their yellow jerseys coming home, winning in front of the Eiffel Tower, or winning on the Giro, or winning on the Vuelta or whatever, And for those 3 or 4 days, I don't think they, and they're not the purists, they're the occasionalists, I don't think they will be too bothered where the money's come from in the background.
So there's that part of it, as are they the new Man City, the PSG? And then, of course, you know, as it was announced that Team Ineos would start at the Tour de Yorkshire, protests. People have already come out saying, right, well, we're going to protest about this. Certainly the anti-fracking protesters have said that they are going to stage protests during this year's race. And sponsorship has always been an issue. Controversial with 2012. I remember covering that a lot in the build-up to those Olympics in London in the summer of 2012. BP, Dow Chemical, everybody had an opinion on whether those companies should be sponsoring sport. And we have it with football clubs, with betting sponsors. And you look at the snooker, every event is basically a betting company. Now, there are some football clubs, and Norwich being one of them, which is obviously my team, the kids' shirts don't have the betting sponsor on, because obviously the club feels that it shouldn't have that for children. So then arguably, if it shouldn't have it for children, should the club be taking the money in the first place? So many controversy will come up because of the sponsor and because of the name Ineos. But I suppose that adds to the question from a sporting point of view: do we have to have ethics in a sport? In a sporting world? Well, arguably yes. But it makes it then very difficult if you're barring everybody. And we all remember growing up with the Benson and Hedges and the Embassy World Darts and all that. And sport has continued with the ban of tobacco. And I don't think anyone disagrees that banning tobacco was a bad thing. But, which sponsors will be left? And if sport does need sponsors to keep going, that's where the issue becomes an issue.
I think you could probably find, if you dug deep enough, a focus group, a pressure group that would probably be upset with pretty much everybody sponsoring anything. I grew up watching Embassy World Snooker for 16, 17 days at the Crucible in Sheffield, but I've never smoked a cigarette, so I don't think there's a direct link there.
You're a bright lad, though.
I don't think there's a link there. Specifically, the anti-fracking protests around the Tour de Yorkshire will be interesting. The Tour de Yorkshire will be interesting this year because, of course, they've lost the chief executive. The chief executive of Welcome to Yorkshire, Sir Gary Verity.
Well, the controversy continues, doesn't it?
Has had to step down this week. And he's not just stepped down because he's done what he said he was going to do, which is deliver the Tour de France, the Grand Depart, to Yorkshire and Leeds in 2014, and then obviously subsequent editions of the spin-off, the Tour de Yorkshire. He's stepping down following concerns relating towards his behaviour, towards staff, and in his relation to his expenses as well. Now, the statement says it's not directly related, and what I would say as well is the Tour de Yorkshire is actually organised by the people, AOS, that organised the Tour de France. So whilst he's very much a central figurehead to it, and the person, if you like, that was the catalyst to start it all, and he's there with his mustard trousers on the starting line, waving out the top of the open-top car at the start, actually the event, I think, will carry on because essentially it is a spin-off of the Tour de France. But more controversy. Will the thousands, the hundreds of thousands of people come out again and support it when it comes through their town, village in Yorkshire this year?
I mean, he is the man behind making Yorkshire the capital of cycling in the UK. It used to be Cambridge. Everyone always said, that's where everyone got on their bike. But now we know that Yorkshire is the place. He's, as you say, fronted the tourism board Welcome to Yorkshire for 10 years. He's developed this annual race, which is now in its 5th edition this summer. He brought the Tour de France famously to Leeds and the hills of Yorkshire in 2014. And then we've got the World Road Race Championships that we keep talking about as well, coming to Yorkshire later this year. I mean, you've covered this event every year.
Award-winning, I should point out.
He is an award. The event is, and his coverage of it is award-winning. And it's just a shame that it's, again, slightly tarnished.
If I can give the case for the defence and the prosecution here all in one go, if you like. For the defence, it has been a fantastic event. It's been commercially very successful. It's brought a lot of investment into Yorkshire. It's brought cycling into loads and loads of new audiences. And they do some great things as part of the Tour de Yorkshire, things like the bike libraries and things like that, which are great. And also, I think with the Tour de Yorkshire as well, as you say, it really has put cycling on the map in this country. It's been a real focus. For the women as well, they've now got 2 days on the tour. I think that's very, very important. Women's road racing cycling is very much the poor relation, and I think Yorkshire has really sort of pushed the boat out there and done a great job, helped, of course, by having these Lizzie Armitstead in Yorkshire, of course, and willing to take part. Now, I've known Gary Verity since they were bidding for the Grand Depart. He was very open, very media friendly at the start. That did change over time. I found him a more prickly character at times as
maybe the pressure mounted.
Yeah, as the pressure mounted, as the success got better, he very much, I think, enjoyed being the centre of attention, as I said, in those lead cars, waving out the sunroofs, and actually became a kind of harder figure to press down, certainly in media terms. I know media's not the be-all and end-all, but I can only speak from what I know. And as I said, in the early days, when he needed the support of the media, he needed local media to back the campaign, to bring the Tour de France, as it was, to Yorkshire. He was very open, very friendly. That, over the years, eroded a little bit. And I just think it's a real shame for lots of very good people that I know that work at Welcome to Yorkshire, and obviously, as I said, work as part of the Tour de France team, that bring a really good event to these shores every year. And it's a shame that this year, I think whatever happens, it will still be a little bit tarnished by what exactly has gone on there, and we don't know exactly what's gone on there, but there's obviously issues around staff and issues around expenses which he's had to repay. Yeah,
and just to say that a statement from Welcome to Yorkshire is that Verity is paying back the money owed on that. But you're right, Michael, a huge blow for the highest profile edition of this event, the Tour de Yorkshire. It's the 5th one, as I say, with Team Ineos there, and then this happening with Sir Gary Verity as well. I mean, the media coverage for the Tour de Yorkshire is going to be an impressive one this year for so many reasons, and we'll keep an eye on it and be covering it for anything but footy.
Yeah, 6-day series cycling taking place, as I said, at the moment in Manchester. We've also had this weekend the Gymnastics World Cup taking place in Birmingham. The men's event was live on BBC television on Saturday afternoon. The women, I'm afraid, were hidden behind the red button on Saturday night, and just some delayed highlights. And then, of course, it was competing with this other event, which Simone Biles and Max Whitlock were taking part in. So you had the Gymnastics World Cup with GB's Joe Fraser and Jamie Lewis, who finished 4th and 9th respectively, up against Max Whitlock and Simone Biles. Now, for me, Simone Biles is up there with the Williams sisters as, one of the very, very best sports people that we've produced, maybe certainly in the 21st century and possibly before that. As I said, up there with the Williams sisters, Martina Navratilova, Billie Jean King, people like that. She is at that level as far as I'm concerned. And then you've got Max Whitlock, double Olympic gold medalist, huge favourite. They're competing in London. And then you've got this Gymnastics World Cup event happening at the same time in Birmingham. I mean, who's behind the scheduling of that?
Now, I know that international weekend, when it comes along, people are desperate for some sport to watch because, there's no Premier League, there's no Championship. People are desperate to watch a bit of live sport. But it does seem slightly weird to have two big gymnastic events. The World Cup, which was obviously, part of a number around the country and around the world taking place. And then this, as you say, this Superstars event at the O2.
It's a shabby treatment, I think, for a sport, gymnastics, that from a British point of view won 7 medals in Rio. Now, that is the same as athletics. And look how much coverage athletics gets on terrestrial TV. It's more than rowing, more than swimming, a bit less than cycling. And the key thing, I think, about that 7 medals, same as athletics, what was the size of the team, the athletics team that went to Rio?
70-odd.
70-odd. Yeah. Do you know how many athletes went? Team of 10 in artistic, 3 in trampoline. So you've got 13 converting that into 7 medals. That's, a 50% hit rate virtually, isn't it? Over a 50% hit rate. Fantastic conversion rate from athletes that went. Fantastic return on investment. And as I said, we've been in to see UK Sport, who are the body that invests this money. And I just think I feel really sorry for British gymnastics that they've had to come up against this other event, which had arguably, certainly from a British point of view and the world point of view, let's be honest, a little bit more stardust.
And Becky Downey, you mentioned obviously Joe Fraser and Jamie Lewis, where they placed. Becky Downey, unfortunately, after a good start, obviously on her comeback from injury, she's had 2 ankle options, winning the Euro title a couple of years ago, won the British Championships all round as well recently, which we talked about in a previous episode of Anything But Footy, but she fell twice on the bars, including falling flat onto her stomach, which looked really, really painful. So she slipped from an early second position to finish 7th after all, and admitted afterwards, I definitely could have put in a better performance. It was a heavy week for me, though, after the British last weekend. And that's the point, and they said that Max Whitlock was resting and obviously competing at these O2s as a kind of an exhibition type thing. But you do need to be able to rest, at this level of sport. And American Simone Biles also saying that Tokyo will be her last. She, of course, won 4 golds at Rio and became the first woman to win the 4 World Championship all-round titles in 2018. She will be 24 years of age when she retires.
A couple of bits of any other business before we hear from our Winter Olympian, Aimee Fuller. Talking of falling flat on your face, World Figure Skating and British Figure Skating. The World Championships have been taking place again behind the red button overnight in Japan. From 18 million audiences for Bolero and Torvill and Dean, and huge audiences for things like Dancing on Ice. Just seriously no British interest in this event. There's ice rinks in towns, cities right across the country. Christmas, the ice rinks come out, and yet you've got no GB figure skaters registering anywhere near the world. And yet, in winter sport, you've got Great Britain, who are looking to be a top 5 snow nation within a couple of Olympic titles. We don't have any snow and mountains. We've got loads of ice rinks, but it seems to me that ice skating is very much off the agenda.
Now, all eyes have been on London this weekend, whether on a march or running half a marathon.
Marathon for me, not the marching.
Thousands of people taking part and supporting as well. And it was the London Landmarks half marathon that you went to and saw in action close up. And it looked pretty impressive stuff.
Like all these things, the blue skies, the sunshine really helps. London is just a fantastic canvas for a sporting event when the sun shines, and we've seen it at London 2012. We see it annually at the London Marathon, the boat race. All of these annual events really just show off the capital city to be such a great venue. And the London Landmarks Half Marathon, this is year 2. I think it's well on its way to becoming another one of those fixtures of the spring season. I think a lot of people can manage a half marathon where the London Marathon is probably beyond them. So you had sort of 13,000 taking part today. Estimates 50 to 100,000 on the streets. There's bands, music, DJs lining the entire route as well. A bunch of celebrities as well. Most of them I didn't recognise.
They recognised you, though.
No, X on the Beach, Made in Chelsea, Towie, you name that reality TV show. They were there with their white teeth and their fake tans. There were a couple of other sort of more genuine celebrities there as well, if you like. Cheryl Baker, former Eurovision winner, saw her. She was lovely as well. Amanda Holden taking part. But, aside from that, I do think it's all about the 13,000 getting themselves out on a Sunday morning and dragging their backside around 13.1 miles. And that, for me, in this era where we're selling off playing fields and we've got childhood obesity and obesity causing massive issues for the NHS, that, for me, is what's inspiring. Yeah,
an Olympian snowboarder, Aimee Fuller, who represented Team GB at Sochi and Pyeongchang as well. Michael caught up with her at the finish line, and frankly, she was full of the joys of spring.
London is the best city in the world. Honestly, that didn't even feel like work. The euphoria running through the London streets was just absolutely unreal. Like one of the best experiences I've ever had. It's warm, it's not too hot, absolutely perfect, and just the vibe. So many charities out here supporting, raising money, and yeah, couldn't be better. Perfect training for the London Marathon.
Now, you're an Olympian, so clearly you're obviously pretty fit, but how is this different from what you would normally be doing?
Oh, this is so different. I come from a fast twitch, explosive power sport, which is snowboarding. Definitely not an endurance sport, and it's just been really fun and different to mix up my training and just challenge my body in a different way, and I've absolutely loved it. Not saying I'm going to be a marathon runner, but thoroughly enjoying the warmer temperatures and enjoying the challenge of pushing my body in a different way and for fun, no pressure, and raising money for cancer research, running with my mum. It's just been a phenomenal experience.
I was going to ask you why you were here, why you're doing it. The charity, obviously, the main reason.
Yeah, the charity, the main reason, and then obviously coming from a winter sport, I can never run through the winter because it's too much pressure on my feet. From snowboarding, I've suffered with plantar fasciitis. Post-Olympics, me and my mum always discussed the potential of doing a marathon together, and then when Tag Her presented us the opportunity to join their team for the London Marathon, me and my mum talked about it, and it was an opportunity not to be missed. So yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed mixing up my training. It's just different, and we're raising money for Cancer Research UK. We lost my granddad to prostate cancer 6 years ago, so he missed seeing me in the first Olympics, and then last year my nan was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's managed to make it to both Olympics, seen me there, and she's made a fantastic recovery. So yeah, we're just out here fighting, raising money, and just enjoying every moment of the atmosphere that London has to offer. It really is spectacular.
So Tokyo 2020 on the roads with Mo Farah must be on your target list next then.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, right, no, definitely not.
Gonna stay in the mountains and the snow.
I think I'm going to stick to the snow, but I'd like to get out to Tokyo. Obviously, we've got skateboarding and surfing being introduced. Those sports are going through a similar transition phase that snowboarding's gone through. Seeing it go from a free action sport into an Olympic sport, so I hope I can get out there and help those guys go through that process that I've gone through. I've also joined the British Olympic Association Athletes Commission, so yeah, I'm looking to support those guys heading to the Summer Games, and who knows, let's see what 2022 has in store for me, but for now I'm enjoying the warmer temperatures.
Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like she's not quite sure what she's going to do in 2022, but she sounds like she'll be playing a key role for Tokyo 2020, maybe a bit of mentoring.
I think that's so important. We're talking so much, aren't we, about welfare of athletes at the minute. There's the new athlete group that's been put together, of course, that we've spoken about before, which I think can be helpful. And then there are the commissions, which is what Aimee Fuller was telling us about earlier on, about being part of that BOA Athlete Commission. Because, you know, when you've got, and we've already spoken about the impact of sponsors, but when you've got bodies like UK Sport distributing money, they need to be distributing it in the right way and making sure that the athletes that are getting that money, in receipt of that money, are using it in the right way as well. And I think welfare, and we're seeing it in reality TV very much at the moment, and my fear is that you build somebody up in a sporting environment, and unless you're Nick Skelton, it's a pretty short career for you. You know, for someone like Aimee Fuller on a snowboard, she ain't going to be at the Olympics when she's nearly 60. So she has 2, maybe 3 Olympic cycles, and all the razzle-dazzle and all the attention that comes with that. What happens next? What happens when Aimee Fuller can no longer be a snowboarder? So to hear her saying, and I've met her and interviewed her a few times, and she seems bright and level-headed, and she's obviously got a brain switched on, and she's already planning for her future. But to hear her say that she wants to go and help those that are maybe going to Tokyo in these new disciplines like skateboarding, surfing, people that have never been in that bubble, that goldfish bowl before, for me, I think I would really welcome that, and I would hope that organising committees from bid cities and, you know, host nations look to their past and their former athletes to really help, whereas where welfare is concerned.
And listen to Michael's comments to Sky Brown and the family, the youngster, the 10-year-old who will be hopefully representing Team GB at Tokyo 2020, because I think that shows absolutely. Now, you know, the other thing we're here for, Anything But Footy, is to celebrate the big events that we put on in this country, and we do it so well. So Michael also caught up with organiser Leah Files about the London Landmarks Half Marathon, and everyone taking part put on a brilliant show.
I don't think it could have gone better. The atmosphere is absolutely incredible down here today. The sun is shining, there's lots of smiling faces. We're seeing feedback on Facebook, the best running event ever. I'm just so happy that all the hard work from the team has paid off and everyone seems to be having a great time.
And in this time where we hear a lot about obesity, we hear a lot about selling off school playing fields, for example, it must be so heartening to see 13,000 people in the centre of London taking on 13.1 miles.
Absolutely. As well as celebrating London's history and culture, the London Landmarks Half Marathon is all about getting people fit and healthy. And the good thing about a half marathon is you have to train for it. You can't just run a half marathon. And what we found from the event last year is that after people had done the half marathon, it encouraged them to stay fit and healthy after, and to go on and run other distances after. So yeah, it's been brilliant to see that.
And if people want to join Jenny Faulkner, Amanda Holden, Cheryl Baker, Michelle Heaton, I could go on and get involved in this, been inspired to take part in this next year, what should they do?
They can pre-register now for the London for LLHM 2020. The link is www.llhm.co.uk/pre-register. By pre-registering their details, we'll send them information when entry opens into next year's event.
So yeah, it's all about getting people fit, and these things happen in every city around the country every weekend, and it really is, if you're interested, really is worth getting involved.
Yep, couch to 5k, park run, your local 10k, half marathon, Great North Run, whatever it is, Great South Run. Just get involved. They are fantastic events. Couple of final little bits of any other business. Boxing might be saved as far as being an Olympic sport is concerned. Their president, the president of the Amateur International Boxing Association, says he's standing down. He could return if cleared of wrongdoing, but this might just allow boxing a clearer route into the next Olympics. The IOC had said they were going to have boxing in the Games. They might just have held it outside the AIBA's jurisdiction, but it looks, and boxing, as we know, is a good sport for British boxers and Team GB, both men and women. It looks as though boxing will take its place on the programme. And talking of the programme for Tokyo 2020, robots and torches.
Yeah, the robots are coming. Apparently they're going to be helping spectators and volunteers. We've seen them kind of carrying the throwing, the javelins back and other throwing objects back in the athletics. But no, and we've seen them dancing at the Rio opening ceremony as well, robots. But they're going to be helping carry food and drink for people in wheelchairs and provide information. The Tokyo 2020 Robot Project, it's called. And there's also power-assisted suits, which will be used at venues to help carry things and throw out the rubbish. Now, that's the kind of thing that I think would be really helpful for just general life. And I think we'll see that quite a lot in Tokyo.
And the torch has been unveiled as well this week. I remember in the build-up to London 2012 and Rio how exciting these landmarks were. And the torch has been unveiled. It's another exciting step on the path to Tokyo 2020 where, as we said, there's literally a ticking clock in the reception area where the BOA and the BPA are based and preparing. If you want to get in touch with us on Twitter, anything but F, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, or your usual podcast platform. Tell your friends, like it, share it, and rate us well.